Mother Bird. Come in, Mother Bird.
Andy's coming, everybody! Back to your places, hurry!
Toy Story just turned 30. 3-0. Are we feeling old yet? Back in 1995, Amazon had just started selling books online. Michael Jordan just came out of retirement, and the first PlayStation had just dropped on shelves. And in the middle of all of that, Pixar dropped a little movie called Toy Story, the very first CGI feature film. But it didn't last until now because it was the first. It lasted because the story was built like a perfect recipe. And today, I'm breaking down the 6 ingredients that made this little cowboy timeless. The big question though, why does Toy Story still work today? Because if you went back and watched a bunch of movies from the 90s, you'd get a mixed result on what still holds up today. So why does Buzz and Woody still feel so alive? Especially when so many characters today feel like plastic. Let's find out. So welcome to Plotluck. I'm Brian, a studio insider and story consultant, and if you love digging into stories like me, you are now officially a plot head. Get it? Plot head? And today you're here for the main course, my deep dive series where we break down a single story, ingredient by ingredient, and figure out exactly why this recipe sticks. So for Toy Story's 30th, we're going under the hood to find the recipe that made Pixar's very first feature an all-time classic. Let's get cooking. Ingredient 1. If I asked you, who is the villain of Toy Story? What would you say? You'd probably think Sid. I mean, it makes sense. Look at him. He got a skull shirt. He loves fireworks. He's got a backyard of horrors. It's kind of nightmare fuel, right? And it's extra nightmare fuel for me. When I was a kid, my parents literally made up an imaginary neighbor that was supposed to be just like Sid. So if I ever got in trouble, guess where I was going? Over to Sid's house. Whew. Still gives me chills. But here's the twist of all of that. Sid isn't driving the story at all. The real antagonist, it's Woody. And more specifically, it's Woody's jealousy. And that's a way smarter choice. Sid's just an obstacle, but Woody's jealousy, that's what actually pushes the story forward. It's what knocks Buzz out the window. I don't know if I feel safe in here. It's what makes the other toys turn against him. It's why Buzz doesn't trust him. Every major problem in this movie traces back to one thing, and that is Woody's flaw. That flaw is something you and I both feel in our gut. Because let's be honest, we've all been in Woody's shoes. Or we've all been in Woody's boots, at least. Because that flaw is the snake in our boots. From beginning to end, we're not waiting around to see if the bad kid next door gets punished. What we are really waiting to see is if Woody can actually overcome himself. And Pixar closes the loop perfectly. Let's take a look at the structure. In Act 1, Woody literally shoves Buzz down and out of sight, trying to keep his place. And in Act 3, he lights the rocket on Buzz's back and literally lifts him up into the sky. It's the same physical setup, opposite meaning. Even though they overcome Sid's madness, you know what? Can we stop for a second? I have a really just burning question I need to ask. What do you think happened to Sid? I mean, the last time we saw him, he was an absolute tyrant. So where do you think he is 30 years later? Prison? Dead? The ending really is Woody's flaw being beaten. That's why it hits. And here's why it matters if you're writing your own stuff. Villains are seasoning. Flaws are the main course. A villain can give you tension for a few scenes, but once they're gone, the story is kind of over. A flaw can power the entire arc, shaping every decision, every relationship, and making the resolution feel earned. If you want conflict that lasts, build it from the inside out. And speaking of building from the inside out, no, we're not covering Inside Out today. Although Woody and Envy probably do have some things in common. Here's the other secret to Toy Story's staying power. It's not just Woody's story. It's a two-hander, if that wasn't obvious. There's no Woody without Buzz. And Woody only works because Buzz exists. Buzz only works because Woody is there to clash with him. Because if Buzz never showed up, Woody would continue to just be the top toy, like nothing ever changed. From the second Buzz lands on Andy's bed, he's Woody's counterweight. And what's that line again? You sad, strange little man. But at the core, Woody's insecure, desperate to hold on to his spot. And Buzz, supremely confident, doesn't even realize he's a toy. And that tension is what is perfect. One is terrified of being replaced, the other doesn't even know he's competing. Looking at structure, Act 1, Woody's arc is on the downturn, while Buzz is on the upswing. Then Act 2 flips. Buzz is the one that crashes, literally. When he sees that commercial and realizes he's just plastic. And in a desperate attempt to silence that doubt, what does he do? He actually tries to fly. Ouch. Next thing you know, he's in a frilly apron drinking imaginary tea. Oh, Mrs. Nesbit. Meanwhile, Woody claws his way back. rallying Buzz with that shelf-side pep talk. And then Act 3 merges. Strapped together on RC, clinging to a rocket, and for the first time, their arcs line up. Woody lifts Buzz up, Buzz lifts Woody. They land in Andy's car, not as rivals, but as equals. That rise and fall rhythm is the heartbeat of the whole movie. It keeps the story alive even in the quiet moments, because we're watching their arcs bounce against each other, like a seesaw. So storytellers, a duo isn't two characters just standing side by side. A real two-hander means their arcs are interlocked. One rises while the other falls until the only way forward is to meet in the middle. If you want your duo to stick, make sure each character's growth is impossible without the other. But even the best duo needs pressure, which brings us to our third ingredient, the deadline. Every great story needs a clock, something that says you have until X or you will lose everything, which is the same motivation that gets me to do the dishes, actually. In Toy Story, that clock is Andy's moving day. And at first glance, it looks pretty standard. We've got to get Woody and Buzz back in the moving van before the family drives away. It's a pretty simple urgency, right? But here is the genius. That deadline isn't just external, it's emotional. Moving day is a metaphor for childhood itself, the end of one chapter, the start of another. Andy's world is shifting, and if Woody doesn't grow up before that truck pulls out, he won't belong in Andy's life anymore. So if we look at the structure, Act 1 plants the seed. Andy's mom mentions the move, boxes pile up in the background, and you feel it looming. Act 2 tightens the screws. Woody and Buzz are stranded. Sid's house is in chaos, and that truck deadline is ticking louder and louder.
Loud noises!
They're not just trying to survive. They're trying to make it back before the whole world they know drives away. Act 3 makes it visceral. We watch Andy's car pull off while Woody and Buzz scramble with RC. And it's not just about catching up to a vehicle. It's about whether Woody and Buzz have grown enough to stay a part of Andy's story. So why this matters for creators? A deadline isn't just a timer. If your story's clock only creates external urgency, the stakes expire the moment the clock runs out. But if the clock is also tied to your character's inner journey, the audience feels pressure long after the credits roll. So next time you're cooking up a story, ask yourself, what's my external clock and what deeper transformation does it represent? But a ticking clock only works if the world it exists in feels alive, which brings us to our next ingredient, the ensemble. One of the things that makes Toy Story feel so alive is that Andy's room isn't just Woody and Buzz bouncing off each other. Every toy has a personality, an insecurity, and those quirks keep the conflict simmering. You've heard that theory, right? That all the toys represent different specific neurotic traits. I mean, let's take a look. Take Rex. A dinosaur terrified he isn't scary enough. Pure anxiety in a green plastic shell. Then you have Mr. Potato Head, the cynic, always ready with a jab. Ham, the smug know-it-all. Slinky, loyal to a fault until Woody pushes him too far. And then you have the worst of them, Bo Peep, with her gentle encouragement. Okay, maybe she's a little more sensible than the others, but she also serves an important role. She forces Woody to confront who he wants to be. She's the one trying to herd the lost sheep, and in this case, that's Woody. These aren't just silly side characters, they're Woody's jury. When Woody shoves Buzz out the window, it's not Sid who judges him, it's his friends. It's the courtroom of toys who strip him of his leadership. And that exile stings way more than anything Sid could do. And look at the flip side, Sid's toys. At first, yeah, they're nightmare fuel. The head of a baby doll on spider legs, you have a fishing rod with Barbie legs, then you have that Jack-in-the-Box of horrors. But slowly, the movie reframes them. They might start scary, but they're not the villains. They're just survivors. Broken, ditched together, but still loyal. In their own way, they're a mirror of Andy's toys. Where Andy's group pressures Woody with mistrust, Sid's ensemble shows Buzz and Woody what solidarity looks like when things are at their worst. Every toy adds tension and forces Woody to face who he really is. Some key takeaways. An ensemble cast isn't decoration. They're intentional reflections of the central story. When side characters have their own neuroses, they become the audience's voice inside the story. They challenge your hero, push their buttons, hold them accountable, or show them another way forward. So when you're writing your own ensemble, don't just ask, what's a funny quirk this side character can have? Ask, how does this quirk pressure test my lead? It's not just the purpose of each character that makes Toy Story so special. It's the intentionality of every setup in the story, which brings us to echoes and reversals, one of my favorite parts of stories. Here's why Toy Story feels so airtight. Pixar plants actions, rules, and images early, and then brings them back later with a twist. It's not just neat symmetry. It's what makes us lean forward and go,
here I come.
Or in my case, you guys, look, it's that thing from earlier. Oh my God. All my friends and family can attest, I am that annoying movie watcher who has to yell those things out. I can't help it. I love movies and I get really excited. We get to feel like participants in the design of the movie. Buzz's light, for example. Early on, he struts around, flashing his laser, pretending it makes him powerful. By the finale, it's actually the sunlight refracting through his helmet that ignites Woody's match. Fake light that's replaced by real light. The echo becomes a reversal, and we register that change. Even the Andy's home rule, that rule gets flipped.
Andy's coming, everybody! Back to your places, hurry!
Sorry, little buddy. Early on, freezing makes them powerless. It's the rule of the world. The toys can't let humans know that they can walk around and talk. But in Sid's yard, they break the rule on purpose and turn that weakness into their ultimate scare tactic. The same gag that makes us laugh now makes us cheer. Pixar does this all over the place, even in their other movies. Other examples from this movie would be Buzz's cardboard rocket in the opening scene. It's echoed later by Sid's real rocket in the climax. The fake becomes real. Here's the key. Pixar doesn't just resolve the story. They let us feel the payoff. The joy isn't in just what the characters do. It's in recognizing that echo, seeing how the earlier beat comes back transformed. That's audience participation. And that's why we leave the theater feeling like the story was inevitable.
I am inevitable.
I am inevitable. So here's the creative opportunity. A good ending isn't just about surprise. It's about reward. If you set up actions, images, or rules early, then flip them later. The audience feels smart for noticing. They feel like they're in on the design, and that satisfaction is what makes a story rewatchable. So when you outline, ask yourself, what early beat can I bring back with new meaning? What weakness can I flip into a strength? What false image can become true? Design those echoes and your story won't just end, it'll click. We've gone through the 5 ingredients as promised. Just like Pixar always sneaks something extra in, we've decided to give our bonus too, the secret ingredient.
The secret ingredient of my secret ingredient soup.
The one that turns a smart story into something soulful. The very first image of Toy Story tells you everything. Andy playing, Woody's the sheriff, the hero, saving the day, because Andy decides who he is. That's Woody's whole identity. His worth comes from being chosen. And that is the crack in the foundation. Because the moment Andy's attention shifts to Buzz, Woody doesn't just feel jealous, he feels erased. His value was never self-defined. It lived in Andy's imagination. And if Andy stops picking him, who is he? And then there's Buzz. He doesn't even need Andy's validation at first because he's living in his own little fantasy world. His worth is internal, but built on a lie. When that illusion collapses, when he sees the commercial and thinks, I'm just a toy, his whole identity implodes. Because if he's not who he thought he was, where does his worth come from? And that's why the finale hits so hard. By the end, Andy isn't choosing between Woody and Buzz. He plays with both. But more importantly, Woody and Buzz have changed. By the end, Woody doesn't need to be the favorite. Buzz can accept that he's a toy. Their worth comes from self-acceptance and showing up for one another. So why does Toy Story still hit 30 years later? Look at the recipe here. These things also mirror our life. As kids, play is how we learn value. What gets picked, what gets left behind. But as adults, we never stop playing that game. We just swap the toy box for jobs, relationships, social feeds. We measure ourselves by who chooses us, who notices us, who gives us worth. And like Woody and Buzz, we all have to face the same hard truth. Real worth doesn't come from being picked. It comes from accepting ourselves, flaws and all, even when the spotlight shifts. Mini mic drop. The reason the recipe works still 30 years later is that they cooked it with conflict, deadlines, ensembles, echoes, and themes that are relatable to us. They showed us that a story lasts not because the villain is scary or that it was made with the shiniest tech, but because the characters struggle with the same questions we do. Am I enough? Do I still matter when the spotlight shifts? So when you watch or read something and think, I really don't care what happens to that character, that movie might be missing what Toy Story does so well. Characters that are flawed but authentic with real, messy human feelings that we too look to overcome. 30 years later, Toy Story still stands because it answers those questions with honesty and heart. So happy birthday, little guy. 30 years and counting.
To infinity and beyond!
So once again, I'm Brian. This is Plot Luck. And if you've ever loved a story, felt let down by one, or dreamed of telling your own, pull up a chair, hit subscribe, and let's stir the plot together. That's a wrap.